Hey friends, so now if you are learning any new programming language like Python, you have to understand and master at early phase one concept, the data types. So that's why now we're gonna go and deep dive into the data types in Python, and we're gonna start with the first question. What is a data type? So now let's say that I got a box like this and I don't know what is inside it, but there's like something. Now the first question that I'm gonna go and ask myself, should I be careful with this box? Is it like inside it glass, electronics or cookies? Or can I go and throw it around in my room? Is it like papers or let's say clothes?
Open the box. He can still catch, okay? Come on, get out of there. Get out of there.
So now I'm wondering about the type of the thing inside this box. And this is exactly what Python needs to understand once you present a new value inside your code. Python wants to understand the type of this value, the type of the data, so that it can understand how to treat your data, how to treat your values. Can Python go and count it and do like mathematical operations on it? Or can we go and combine it or maybe compare it with other values and so on? So this is exactly what are data types in programming languages. So now let's understand exactly what we are talking about. Let's have this sketch. Now you remember, if you want to create a value in a variable like a is equal to 10, so now what can happen? You will have like a box, and this box has a label. The label is the variable name a. And now inside this box we're gonna put the value. So our value, our data is 10, and this number gonna be stored inside this box. So far we have two informations, the variable name and the value itself. Now we have a third information about this box, and that is the type of the data inside this box is an integer. So that means for different data types now we have different type of boxes. And the only thing that define which box we're gonna need is the value itself. So let's see how Python works behind the scenes. Okay, so now let's say that in the code you said a is equal to 10. Now the first thing that Python gonna do is gonna check the value. So it's gonna go and ask itself, what type of data is it? So that means Python here is inspecting the values inside your code, and it is smart enough to say, this is an integer. And now Python behind the scenes has a lot of empty boxes with different sizes and shapes. So now since it is an integer, Python gonna go and choose the right box with the right size. So it's gonna go and put the label of a, the variable name, put the value inside it, and then put the whole thing in the memory. Alright, so now let's move on. In the next line we have another variable called b, but this time inside it there is hello. Again, the first thing that Python gonna do is to inspect the value. So Python gonna check this data and gonna find, we have here like characters. This is a string. So it's gonna go and start searching the boxes for the correct type and as well the correct size. And once it's found it, it's gonna put as well a label on it, the variable name, put the value inside it, and then move everything to the memory, but of course in different place. Now moving on to the third value, we have c is equal to true. Python gonna go and check the value, and this time it's gonna say, this is not a number, this is not between like double quotes, so that means this is not a string, and this value true is a boolean. So with that, Python understand the type of the data, and the same thing happens. Python gonna go and find the right box for this value, put the variable name, the value inside it, and move everything to the memory. Okay, so now we're gonna go and do something tricky, where we're gonna reuse the variable a, but this time we're gonna store inside it different type of value. So we are storing ABC. Now previously we have a is equal to 10, so it was a number, but this time it is a string. So now what's gonna happen? Python gonna go and check as well the value and say, this is a string. We have characters, but we have already a variable in the memory called a. So Python will not go and create like two variables with the same name. So what's gonna happen? It's gonna go and grab the old box and totally destroy it. So it's gonna remove the variable and the data inside it, and it's gonna go and pick the right box now for the new value. This time we are talking about the string, so it will put the label a, and inside it's gonna store the new value, but this time in a new type of box. And then as usual, gonna go and put it in the memory, but together in the same shelves with the variable b. Now by looking to this, we can understand Python automatically detect the type. So that means in your code, you don't have to go and tell Python about the data type. It's not like Java or C++ where you have type declarations before each variable, Python is simple and smart enough to understand the data type. And we have understood that Python is very dynamic. You can go and change the data type of your variables anytime you want in your code. And as well, we have understood that our values, our data, will be stored in different types and as well in different sizes. Okay, so now let's understand the real reason why Python needs data types. Let's say that we have a value like hello, and you go and apply for it a function called upper. Now, if you apply this function to this value, what can happen? You will get the same word, but everything is written in uppercase. So you will get hello with all capital letters. Now, let's say that I would like to apply the same function, but for the number 50. So now in this scenario, what can happen? Are we gonna go and get like a very big 50? Well, there is no upper cases for the numbers, and this makes totally no sense. But my friend, things don't work like this. The value hello has a data type, it is the string, and the data type of the 50 is integer. Now, based on the data type, Python can restrict which types could be used with this function. So if you try to apply this function to the integer, Python gonna throw immediately an error and say, this is not allowed. You can use this function only for the data type string. So that means, my friend, Python uses data types to make sure you don't do wrong things on the wrong kind of data. It's like you are trying to microwave your keys. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Now there is like another reason. Let's say that we have two values. You have 2 and 3. Those values are integers. And now if you use the operator plus between them, what can happen? Python can go and answer with 5. So because they are integers, Python understands I can go and add those numbers. But now let's have the same scenarios, the same values, but we are using here double quotes. Now for Python, those values are string values. And if you go and apply the operator plus between them, this time Python can show in the output 23. Well, this time, since your values are string, Python will not go and apply mathematical operation between them. All what happens here is Python is concatenating your string. It is joining the text. So as you can see, Python behaves very differently based on the data type. So this is exactly why programming languages needs data types. It uses it in order to prevent you doing something wrong, and as well it can understand how to treat and operate on your data. Well, there are like many ways on how you categorize the data types in Python, but I do it like this. I think about it like we have 3 categories, 3 baskets. One basket holds one fruit, one value. Another one holds many fruits, many values. So this is a second category. And the third one don't hold any value. It is an empty basket. So let me walk you through them one by one. The first basket, the first group, it is completely empty. There is nothing inside it. And in Python, we have a special value for that. It's called none. Now moving on to the second category, we have the single value category. And here we could have values like 50. And as we learned, this is an integer, but we have another type for the decimals, like for example, 3.14. This is not a whole number. We have here decimals. So the data type of this numeric value is float. Now moving on, if you are using characters like hello, as we learned, this is a string. And one more, if you have like true, then this is as well a new data type called boolean. Now, if you are looking to those values and data types, they always hold one value. That's why I group them together under this category. Now, moving on to the third category, the multiple values. Here we have many values, like for example, 1, 2, 3. You have the data type called list, or let's say that you have like 3 values A, B, C. And with that, you are forming different data type called dictionary, dict. And we have other types like the set and the tuple. So as you can see, those data types holds multiple values. So it's not like the other types where we have only one value like the integer, float, and boolean. And there are like many different names for this category. We call it a data structure or collection. Some other call it containers. So they are like advanced data types in Python, and they are very important, of course. I'm gonna have a dedicated chapter for that. And on the other side, the single values, sometimes we call it primitive data types. They are the core and the very basic data types in any programming languages. Even in SQL, they are very similar. So those are the famous data types inside Python that we're gonna learn through the course. Okay, so now let's go and create some basic data types in Python. And we're gonna start with the first one. Let's say that A is equal to 10. Now Python gonna go and check the value. 10 is a whole number. It has no decimals. That's why it's gonna treat it automatically as an integer. So this one is an integer int. Now next, let's go and create another variable and let's assign for it the value 3.15. Now Python gonna say, this is a decimal point. It is not an integer anymore. In Python, we have different type for that. It's gonna be the float. And of course, what I'm writing here is again a comment. We are not declaring anything. That's enough for Python. It is smart enough to find out the data type. Now, the next one, we learned about it. If you put a value between two double quotes and you say, for example, hello, this is in Python considered to be a string. So this one, Python gonna go and assign it for a string data type. So if you use double quotes, or even if you go and use single quotes like this, and you say hi, this is considered to be a string as well. It doesn't matter whether you are using double quotes or single quotes. Once Python sees it, it's gonna assign it for data type string, and you can put inside it anything. So you can use letters like this, or even you can go and say double quotes and you put number inside it. This still to be considered as a string, because Python once says the double quotes or single quotes, it will automatically assign it to a string without going deeper in order to understand whether they are numbers or characters or even special characters. So all those stuffs considered to be a string. Okay, so far we can have numeric values, text values. Now moving on to the third very famous type, we can say f is equal to true, or another value, we say it is equal to false. Okay, so what do we have here? We have here like words, true and false, but they are not between like double quotes or single quotes. So they are not string. Those two are special values for the data type Boolean. Okay, so that means the Boolean data type has only two values. It could be true or false. There is no third value. It's like you are saying, for my question, there is like only yes or no, 1 and 0, so true and false. So again, that means for the other data types, you could have any value that you want, but for the Boolean, it has only two values. This is a great and very important data type in order to build a logic inside our program, and the Boolean usually is like an output of a lot of functions. So if you compare like two values, if they are equal, we will get true. If not, we will get false. So this is very important data type. And now one more thing, this is case sensitive. That means the first character must be capitalized and the rest must be lowercase. If you go and say true like this, it will not work. As you can see, it has like different color even. So it is very important to have the first letter as capitalized and the rest as lowercase. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have something special, and this one called none. So again, this is a word. It's not between double quotes. So this is not a string. This is a special value. And now since we are saying none, that means it is nothing. I don't have a value for this variable yet. It's like saying, okay, I'm gonna have now a variable, but I don't want to assign for it any value. I don't know yet which one gonna be. Or you say for this variable, we will not assign anything for it. So none means nothing. It is a special value to say there is no data, there is no value. So that means we don't have a data type for this. Now, since we are talking about the none, I would like to explain something that confuses a lot of developers. You could have this value where you say, I'm gonna have like double quotes, but nothing inside it. So there is nothing. This is totally different than the none. Because in this scenario where you have double quotes and nothing inside it, Python understand already we are talking about a string value. So it's gonna do everything as any other string. It's gonna reserve for it a place in the memory. It's gonna treat it as a string, and we call this as a blank. Blank has already a data type string, and we're gonna treat it in the code as a string. But the special value none, we don't know yet which data type. So Python will not do anything for it, will not go and create anything in the memory, will not assign it to any data type. And another one we could have as well, double quotes and inside it a space. This we call it an empty space. The same thing like the blank, it is string, it will has a place in the memory, and even here we have a value with the space. So let's write a few comment. This is Boolean, same things here. Now for the none, we call it none type. For the blank, it is a string, but it is empty, it is blank. And the last one, this is as well a string, and it has empty space. So again, what we have learned, we have numeric values like the int and float. And for the text, we have a string data type. Once you open two double quotes or single quotes, you can write inside it whatever you want. It could be letters, it could be numbers. Python gonna treat it all as same data type, string. Another data type which is really cool, where you have only two values, true and false for the conditions. And then we have special case where you don't want to assign any value, and we don't know yet the data type, we call it none, and it is different than the blank and the empty space. So those are the basics of data types. Now you might ask me, what is the big deal about the data types? Why do we have to learn them? Well, you have to understand your tools that you have in the programming language in order to work with the data. And you cannot use all the tools for all values. There are specific tools for specific data types. And that's why I need you to understand now a little bit more about the functions and data types. So now there is like one thing that we are always doing as we are programming. We want to do something to the data. So this has two parts. Now we have learned data are values. And now in order to do something to our data, we use functions. And functions are very simple. You have a value, you pass it to the function function does something, and then in the output you will get a new value. Now in Python there are like three main types of functions. The first one, we call it the standalone functions. They are functions that you can go and use them directly. Like the function that we have learned before, print and type. Those are standalone functions. They are not complicated, they just work. Now to the second type of functions, we have something called method of a class. So methods are as well functions, but they are a little bit more complicated where they belong to something. You can't just go and directly use them. You have to prepare something before using the methods. And for that we have methods or functions like the upper to make a string capitalized, and as well we have another method called replace to replace something inside your string. Now there are like third thing that you can do to your values. We call it operations. And yes, my friend, operations are functions, but it is something completely behind the scenes and you don't have to worry about those functions. For now, just learn they are operations and that's it. They are very easy. You just go and use simples like plus, divider, greater, we have equal. All those are operators. They are like shortcuts in order to use a hidden function, let's say. Now, of course, the question is, where do these functions come from? The first and the very important one is the standard Python library. At the start, as we have installed Python at our PC, we have actually not only installed the Python engine, we have installed as well this standard library. So this one is the huge toolbox that comes with Python, full of very helpful built-in functions that we use every day in Python. Now, if this is not enough, we have another source of functions. We call it the third-party libraries. They are actual tools that made by the community. You can install them in order to extend the power of Python, and there are very famous libraries like the pandas, NumPy, TensorFlow, and many other amazing things that can help us with many different tasks using Python. And now we come to the third source of functions. We have the user-defined functions. It is something that you code and create on your own in order to do something to our values. So those are the different types of functions and the different sources of functions. And now we can understand one more very important thing about the standalone functions and method and what this has to do with the data types. Okay, so now we're gonna go and put all the pieces together. Now we start at the top. We have the standard Python library. So it is the Python toolbox, and if you open it, you will find many stuff, but we find something called modules. A module is like a Python file that contains reusable code, so you don't have to write it and program it each time. Now the most famous one that we have in Python is the built-in module. So this built-in module is always there and ready to be used, so it is always connected and you don't have to do anything. That's why you don't see us importing the built-in module. Now what is inside this built-in module? We can find the famous standalone functions that we already used. We have the input, the print, type function, links functions, and usually we call them the built-in functions. Now, not only that, we can find as well classes. Again, we're gonna deep dive into the classes later, but think about it, it's like a blueprint, and we have a class for each data type in Python. And now for each class, for each data type, we have special functions, we call them methods, and those methods are attached to only those classes. So for example, for the string class, we have methods like upper and replace, and there are many other methods. For the integer, we have a method like, for example, 2 bytes. And as I said, for each data type, we have a class. Now, inside this library, we have as well other modules like, for example, the math. And this is very powerful in order to do mathematical calculations and so on. But this is not a built-in. It's not already connected. It is there in the library. But if you want to use it, you have to go and import it. Import means I'm installing this in my code. Now, inside this module, we can find as well functions. Like, for example, we have ceil and floor. And of course, many other stuff. So as you can see, there is like not one place for all functions. It's like spread it into multiple modules and as well classes. So now let's have an example. Let's say that we have the value hello. So now in Python, this value, this data, It's not like a value in the air. It is an object of string. And since now this value is attached to the class, we can use without any limitations all the methods of this class. So without any limitations, I can go and apply the method upper or replace to this value. Now, of course, the question is, can I use the other functions? Well, it depends on the Python rules and whether it makes sense, of course. So for example, from the built-in functions, I can go and use the type and the length for this value without any issues. But now if you try to use the functions from the math module, it will not work. It is restricted because of course it makes no sense to apply mathematical operations on a string. So about the functions, it really depends. Some functions will work and others will not. But what is totally not allowed is to use the methods of other class. Like for example, the method of the integer, because they are special functions only for the integer. So this is actually how it works. Let's have another example. Let's have the value 50. Now again, this value 50 is not like in the air. Python gonna go and connect it as an object to the class integer. So what this means, my friend, I can go and use any method inside this class for my number, for the integer. And of course, about the other functions, it depends. So for example, for the built-in functions, I can go and use the type function, but I cannot go and use the length function because for Python, it makes no sense. And on the other hand, in the mathematical module, we can go and use almost all the functions because we have an integer, a number, and we can go and apply mathematical functions. And now we come to the point, if you try to use any method from the string class, nothing gonna work because no string methods will be allowed to be used for integers, only for the string. Okay, so now let's quickly recap. Your data, your values in Python, they are objects that is connected or belong to a specific data type class, and this class has multiple methods. Now this value can use any method inside this class, so that means those methods are dedicated only for one data type for this class, but it is totally forbidden to use the methods of another data type class. And about the other functions, it depends. And depends of the Python rules, some functions will work and others will not work because of course it makes no sense. So my friend, this is the big picture. This is how things works in Python. And now it's totally fine if you didn't understand everything like 100% because as we progress in the course, I'm gonna explain more and more in details. I'm sure at the end you're gonna be master in Python. Okay, now we're gonna do quick comparison between the functions and methods. So the functions are independent block of code. The methods are functions, so again they are like codes, but they belong to objects and classes. This is not the only difference, there are differences as well in the syntax. So now as we learned, the syntax is going to be very simple for the functions. We say the function name and then between parentheses we put a value or a variable. For example, we have learned print hello, so print is the function name and between parentheses we pass the value, and we have another function called type, so this is the function name and we pass for it a value like 50. So I think nothing new here. But now the syntax for the methods looks different. So this time we start with the value or the variable name, then we use dot, and after that the method name. So it's the way around, we start with the value then the method name. In the functions we start with the function name then the value, and the value that we are manipulating will not be between the parentheses. We can of course put some other stuff, but the main value that we are manipulating, it will be outside after a dot. So let's have an example. Our value hello and then dot and the method name upper. So it looks different, but it's not that hard. The same thing here, we have the value 50 dot bit underscore length, the method name. Of course, we can go and use variables, not only values. So that's the main differences between functions and methods. Okay, now we can have a few examples. Let's go and create two variables. One of them is a string with any value and another one a number, like 10. So we have a string and integer. Now let's try out few built-in functions in Python. We already done that many times, so we're gonna go and print the text, and as well let's go and print the number. So let's go and execute it, and that means the print function can work for any data type. Okay, so now let's go and use another built-in Python function, and this time we're gonna go and use the function type. So for both of them, the type function is really nice one in order to understand the data type of your values, because as we learned, Python gonna automatically detect the data types, but maybe you are wondering which data type did the Python detect. So now if you go and execute it, you will not see anything in the output, and that's because type will not print anything in the output. That's why we have to use the print. So that means we have to go at the start and say print, and now we are doing the nesting function. So we are using function inside another function. So print And now let's go and execute it. Now in the output, we are seeing the result of the type function. So from the first variable, the type is class string because it is a string value, and for the second variable, the number, it is from the class integer. So with that, we can understand clearly which type Python is using for my variables and my values. So as you can see, this function works for any type. Okay, so now let's keep going. Let's move to another built-in function in Python. We have the length. len. So let's do it for both of our variables. This function is really simple. It's going to go and calculate the length of your data, the value. So now if you go and execute it, you will find at the start we have the number 2, and this comes from the first print. Because our value has here like 2 characters, the length of this string is 2. So that's why we are seeing 2. But for the second print, we are getting an error. And if you check the error message, it says the object of type int has no length. So that means, my friend, this built-in function, the length, will not work for the data type integer. So again, not all functions will work for all data types. So that means we cannot do that, and we comment that out and then execute. We will get to. Okay, so now we're gonna move to the methods of the data type classes. Let's try, for example, the method upper and go and apply it for both of the functions. So let's start with the first one. We're gonna say this time the syntax like this, text dot, and then open and close parentheses like this. So as you can see, the syntax is different than functions. Now, if I go and execute it, you will see we will not get any error, but I will not see anything in the output. And that's because I'm not printing. So we're gonna put the whole thing in print. So now I'm putting a method inside a function, yeah? Let's go and execute it. You will see now the same value, but everything is written in uppercase. And this is exactly what the upper method does. It converts everything to an uppercase. Now let's go and apply the same thing for the number. So we're going to say number dot upper. And now you can see we are not even getting the green color. Now if you go and execute it, you will get here an error, and it says the int object has no attribute upper. As we learned, the value 10 is an object from the class integer, and in this class there is no method called upper. We can find this method only in the class of string. That's why Python is not finding this method and we are getting an error. So it is not allowed to use the method of another class. So now let's go and apply a method from the integer class. For example, we're going to use the bit length like this. This method is very simple. It's going to go and calculate how many bits are needed in order to store my value. So now if I go and execute it, nothing going to happen, but of course we can go and print the value. So we're going to say print and execute it. So it says we need 4 bits in order to store the value 10. So as you can see, it is allowed to use this method because it is an integer method. Now if you go and apply the same method for the text, it will not work. So if you go and execute it, it's gonna say the string object has no attribute bit length. So it will not work. You can use only the methods from the same class. So now we have an understanding about what is allowed and what is forbidden. So this is exactly why you have to understand how things works in Python between the functions and methods and the data types. Okay, my friends, so this is the full map of Python data types that we are going to visit each one of them step by step in this course, because it is very fundamental in Python to understand how I'm gonna store, structure, manipulate, transform my values and data. And what are my tools? What are the functions that I can use in each data type? So we're going to understand them one by one. And one of the most important data type here is the string. So we're going to cover that first in our course. Okay, friends, so now let's have a quick recap. Each value in Python has a data type. It tells Python how to treat and operate on that value. And Python is smart enough to automatically detect the data types. So you don't have to declare any types for Python. And data types can change anytime. It is very dynamic in Python. So you can switch the types of variables anytime you want. And for the data types, we have 3 main categories. The no value, so none type, when you have nothing. Then the second category, we have the single values. Those are the very basic and primitive data types like integer, float, string, and boolean. And then a third category, we have the multiple values. Those are the advanced data types. We call them data structures, containers, collections. And here we have very important data types like list, tuple, set, dictionary. And we have learned values are objects that belongs to a class, and each data type class has its own methods. So each data type comes with its tools in Python. So this is what we mean with data types. Now we have a challenge for you. Create 5 variables where you're gonna enter your age, height, name, are you a student, and something with no value yet. Then print the values, the types, and the length of each variable. Now pause the video and solve the task. Okay, so now let's check our progress. With that, we have solid understanding about the data types in Python. And now next, we're gonna deep dive into one data type, the string, and we will learn all the important functions on how to manipulate the string values. Alright, my friend, one more last thing. If you really enjoyed this type of tutorials where it's free and as well I sketch those complex concepts, and you want more content like this, then support the channel by subscribing, liking, commenting. This can really help with the algorithm and gonna support the channel by reaching others like you, and as well it can help me to make more content like this. And of course, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.